It is a freezing night in Minsk, late 2025. Inside the presidential palace, a space so vast you could fly a drone through it, the air smells of roasted meats and heavy spirits. At the center of the room sits Alexander Lukashenko, the man the West calls Europe's last dictator. And across from him isn't a diplomat, but an American lawyer named John Kola.
They are deep into a vodka-drenched dinner. The stakes couldn't be higher. They are discussing the release of political prisoners, sanctions that are strangling the Belarusian economy, and the war in Ukraine. But then, Lukashenko leans in. He ignores the briefing papers. He looks at Kowali and asks a question that has absolutely nothing to do with geopolitics.
He asks, "Have you lost weight?"
You can't make this up. In the middle of a high-stakes negotiation involving the fate of Nobel laureates and billion-dollar industries, the dictator wants diet tips.
And Kowal, being a veteran litigator who knows how to read a room, doesn't miss a beat. He tells him about Zepbound, the injectable weight loss drug from Eli Lilly. He even hands the dictator a brochure. This surreal moment, Sarah, is the perfect opening for today's story. It encapsulates the new era of Trump-esque diplomacy, transactional, personal, and completely off-script.
Welcome back to Phantom Wealth. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Adam. Today, we are deep diving into what we call the Zepbound back channel. We are going to uncover how a weight loss drug, a $22 million legal check, and a craving for legitimacy led to one of the biggest prisoner swaps since the Cold War. And more importantly, we are going to ask, is the U.S. funding a dictator's regime just to prove a point to Putin?
Let's start with the man himself, John Kowal. He is not your typical special envoy. He isn't from the State Department. He doesn't speak diplomat.
Far from it. Kowali is a litigator. He made his name representing Donald Trump in lawsuits against Meta and other social media platforms. In fact, he has a framed check for $22 million from the Meta settlement hanging on his wall in Palm Beach. When the State Department first called him to go to Belarus, his reaction was,
he said, and I quote, "My first thought is, where the hell is that?"
Exactly. But that's the phantom wealth style of politics we are seeing now. The hell with who you're talking to, Kowal said. If this person can deliver what you want, that's all that counts. And what Lukashenko wanted was very specific. He wanted to get off the loser table.
The loser table?
That is the metaphor Kowali used during their 4-hour dinner. He told Lukashenko that right now, sitting with Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela, he is at the loser table of global affairs. But if he played ball with the U.S., he could move to the cool guy table.
That sounds like high school cafeteria politics. But it worked. Lukashenko, who has called himself the last and only dictator in Europe, was desperate for two things: money and respect. Specifically, he wanted sanctions relief on Potash, and he wanted his presidential jet fixed.
Let's break down the Potash Deal, because this is where the phantom wealth gets real. Potash is a key ingredient for fertilizer. Belarus is the third largest producer in the world. It accounts for roughly 4% of their entire GDP. When the West sanctioned it after the 2020 crackdowns, it choked their economy. Lukashenko was forced to sell it to China at a massive discount just to get hard currency.
So, by lifting these sanctions, the Trump administration isn't just being nice. They are handing Lukashenko a loaded gun. They are giving him back his primary source of revenue.
Precisely. In early September and again in December, the U.S. Treasury eased sanctions on Belarusian potash companies. Kowali framed it as a win for American farmers who need cheaper fertilizer. But let's be clear, this cash flow stabilizes Lukashenko's regime. And in return, Lukashenko opened the prison doors.
And not just a crack. We are talking about 130 prisoners released in a single batch in December, including Nobel Peace Prize winner Ales Bialyatsky. Since Trump took office, over 250 detainees had been freed.
It is a massive humanitarian victory. No one can deny that. Seeing Bialyatsky free is incredible, but here is the phantom part of the equation. Are we just incentivizing hostage-taking?
That is exactly what the critics are saying. I've been looking at the X-Files, the reactions on social media, and the anger is palpable. Let me read a few. Here is one from a user named Jay in Kiev. He writes, Potash sanctions lifted after Belarus frees 133 prisoners. Belarus still aids Russia's war machine. Sanctions evasion persists. Diplomacy over denial.
That is the key point. Belarus isn't just an isolated country, it is Putin's staging ground. By enriching Belarus, are we indirectly funding the war in Ukraine?
Another user was even more blunt. They wrote, I am happy for this girl, and for every person who is free now, but the deals behind this are ugly, because they help Lukashenko to keep his people as slaves and Putin to kill more and more innocent people. Ugly deals. That seems to be the theme.
It is the definition of transactional realism. Koale's argument is that sanctions weren't working anyway. Lukashenko was just bypassing them through China, so why not get something for them? But there is a bigger game being played here. This isn't just about Belarus, it is a test run for Russia.
You mean the $2 trillion economy next door?
Exactly. U.S. officials believe that Lukashenko is the ultimate backchannel to Putin. They have been friends for a quarter century. If the U.S. can show that deals can be made and sanctions can be lifted with Lukashenko, they are signaling to Putin, you could be next.
So Belarus is the laboratory rat.
In a way, yes, a laboratory rat that is getting Ozempic or Zepbound in this case. It is absurd, but the personal rapport Koale built with Lukashenko, bonding over vodka, weight loss, and locker room talk, is being used as a template for how Trump wants to deal with Putin to end the war.
But Adam, what about the Boeing jets? That part really stuck out to me. We are sending software and parts to fix the dictator's personal plane?
It is symbolic. The sanctions had grounded Bolivia's fleet. The presidential jet was falling into disrepair. For a strongman, that is humiliating. By fixing his jet, the U.S. is giving him back his wings, literally. It is an ego stroke. And in the world of phantom wealth, ego is a currency just as valuable as Bitcoin.
But let's look at the cost. Svitlana Tsikhanouskaya, the opposition leader who lives in exile, called this a revolving door. She said Lukashenko is willing to sell people as long as it is possible.
That is the dark side of this transaction. If you pay a kidnapper a ransom, do they stop kidnapping? Or do they just go grab more people because they know the price is good? Lukashenko jailed 30,000 people in 2020. He has plenty of inventory, to put it crudely.
It is chilling when you put it that way. We are celebrating the release of 123 people, but how many more will be arrested tomorrow to restock the shelves for the next Potash deal?
That is the question no one in the administration wants to answer publicly. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, just keeps repeating the stats. Trump has done more to bring Americans home than any president in history. And strictly by the numbers, she is right. But the moral ledger? That is much murkier.
I saw a comment on X that really summed up the skepticism. A user wrote, Trump wants to sell out Ukraine for his own wealth and is willing to make a deal with the devil to accomplish this.
And on the flip side, you have the supporters. There are plenty of comments praising this. One user wrote, wow, great news for the country. Trump tariffs worked. Oh wait, wrong story. Sorry, getting my files mixed up. But there are users saying, if this person can deliver what you want, that's all that counts. They see it as pragmatic. Why keep sanctions that don't work?
It brings us back to the Zepbound. There is something so dystopian about U.S. officials looking into arranging a supply of high-end American weight loss drugs for a dictator, while his own people were rotting in prison cells.
It is the ultimate phantom wealth contrast. High-tech pharmaceuticals for the elite, hard labor for the dissidents. And now they are free, but they are walking out into a country that is economically stronger because of the very deal that freed them.
So Adam, looking ahead, the report mentions that Lukashenko is now advising the U.S. on how to deal with Venezuela's Maduro.
Yes, He told Koala's wife, Greta Van Susteren, that Maduro is welcome to move to Minsk. Can you imagine? A retirement home for dictators in Belarus.
The cool guy table is getting very crowded.
It is. And this brings us to the future, 2026. If this Belarus model works, trading sanctions relief for political concessions, we are going to see it applied to Russia. The Potash Deal is the blueprint.
But Europe isn't buying it. The EU sanctions remain in place. They are much stricter than the US ones.
That is the friction point. The US is moving fast, breaking things, making deals. Europe is still focused on systemic change and human rights. We are seeing a split in the Western alliance, driven by this shadow diplomacy.
So, what should we watch for next?
Watch the potash flows. If Belarusian fertilizer starts flooding the market again, we know the deal is fully active. And watch the battlefield in Ukraine. If Lukashenko actually starts pressuring Putin to negotiate, then maybe this deal with the devil paid off. But if the war drags on, and Lukashenko just uses the money to buy more Oreshnik missiles, then we just funded our own enemy.
A sobering thought. From vodka dinners to global consequences, this story is far from over.
Absolutely, and we haven't even touched on the Oreshnik missile deployment yet. Lukashenko announced just last week that these nuclear-capable missiles are on combat alert in his territory.
Wait, we lifted sanctions, and he put nuclear missiles on alert?
Welcome to the paradox. We fed the tiger hoping it would become a house cat. But a tiger is still a tiger.
Stay skeptical, everyone. We'll be tracking the money and the missiles right here on Phantom Wealth.
See you next time.